All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Dropping the Hammer with Daniel McFadin. I'm Daniel McFadin, and this is the part where I would usually introduce my friend James Crow, but he is not here tonight. He has some other obligations, but with me is my friend and one of my favorite people in the NASCAR media corps, uh, from the Athletic, formerly of SB Nation and other things that I can't remember right off the top of my head.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Jordan Bianchi.
How are you, man? It's good to be with you. You were one of my favorite people as well. I miss seeing you on the beat. And you mentioned SB Nation, and man, that feels like so long ago.
Well, that's when we met. Is when you were
Yeah.
you were at SB Nation at Indianapolis back in 2014. You were at SB Nation.
Yeah, I did. I was there for 7 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was. And
Wow.
yeah, but it feels like it feels so long ago because so much has happened since. So yeah, things good with you?
Oh yeah, I'm doing great. We're not even going to talk about Dover.
There's nothing to talk. Hendrick was great. They whooped everybody. One,
Yeah,
2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it happened. It was a race.
Exactly.
So
I don't know what. There's not much to say. I mean, it's Dover. Right? I mean, the expectations for that place are so muted. It is what it is. I'm just thankful they don't have 2 races there anymore.
Oh, yeah, at the 200 lap mark, I was like, oh, thank goodness, thank good, because usually every time we go to Dover, at some point people start tweeting, "Hey, remember when this race was 500 miles?"
Yeah, 500 miles twice a year, but that also used to be on the asphalt too, so that was a little different.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. It's a great one of the questions I've always wondered about, and I don't know the answer to this. So all I have to do is ask. And I guess it's the lesson for journalism. If you have a question, ask.
Yeah.
I just haven't done it because I'm lazy, apparently. I don't know why Dover insists on being being concrete. I don't have the answer to that.
At the time, I believe it was because the tires weren't holding up great on the asphalt. I think that's it. Okay. I'm not sure. I think that's part of the reason they went to concrete, but I think tire technology is better now than it was in 1994 or 95 is when they switched.
Yeah, and I remember. I mean, I followed NASCAR. That I don't remember excessive tire wear at Dover. I mean, it's always been an issue because the speeds and the force and everything, and that you put on the right front. But I don't know. I mean, to me, tire management's part of racing. So yeah, I don't know.
I wish they'd switch back. I wish they'd switch back. But anyway, yeah. So as we record this, I have on the background the NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational at the digital COTA. It's a fake race, but we're going to talk about real stuff. So where do you want to start, Jordan? Do you want to start in the cannonball that Roy Cooper did into the NASCAR pool right around the time we were talking to Roush people? I hop off of that and I see a tweet from a local Fox reporter in Charlotte saying that Roy Cooper has introduced a proposal that would give $30 million to the 3 current and former NASCAR tracks in Charlotte, $10 million each. Mm-hmm. Charlotte Motor Speedway, a little track called North Wilkesboro.
Might have heard of it.
Might have heard of it.
Yeah.
And the Rockingham.
Yeah.
And up till now, every single time that North Wilkesboro has been brought up, my eyes get roll back in their head to where I could see my brain. But this time, my eyes kind of went wide with wonder and anticipation. What was your initial reaction to this?
Yeah, I think like you, the North Wilkesboro thing it escapes me in the sense of, listen, it's a classic short track. I want more short tracks. I think NASCAR put on a great show there. I get it all. I understand the sentiment. It should have never left the schedule. There's a lot, I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. That said, that place needs a lot more than $10 million. I have been there. I was there in December 2019.
That's right. You went up there with Dale Jr.
Dale Jr.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And as much as I would love for it to come back, I just don't see the viability of it for a lot of reasons. One, I have spoken to people, and I know there are people out there, there are short track experts out there who will tell you that you don't need to spend more than $100 million and etc. That's fine. From the conversations I've had with people about this, you're going to need $100 million plus, and everything has to be renovated. Everything, the track, the infield, the walls, the fencing, the bleachers. I mean, I literally saw a photographer put his foot step as he's walking and almost fall through. I mean, you have suites.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, office buildings. All of the infrastructure that goes around that has to be replaced. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, it is not the easiest place to get to.
I've never been there. I've never even been there. So
it's on a small off a road, a 1 lane each way road. It's not the easiest place to get to. It's kind of out there. Listen, I have no doubt if they spent whatever amount of money it is to fix that place up, and it was beautiful, people would come and pack it. I just think the parking is going to be, if you thought Kentucky in 2011 was bad, I think this is going to be a lot worse. And I don't know. It just doesn't seem viable. Now, listen, I'm going on a little bit of a rant. I hope Marcus Smith can make it work. Marcus Smith, to his credit, has shown a willingness to spend money and think outside the box. The Charlotte Roval, Bristol Dirt, figuring out how to get COTA to happen. Like he is willing to take risks and willing to write checks. That's awesome. So if this can happen, it's going to be because of him. I just don't see it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, have you gotten a chance to like? Oh, first off, breaking news: they made it through turn 1 fine.
I missed it. Oh shoot! No, how was it?
They as far as I know, they all made it. So
they're professional drivers. It's the same thing. I remember at Daytona last year on the road course in August, and the whole conversation going into the race.
I thought
no practice, no qualifying, and it's going to be a cluster bleep going into turn 1. And I was like, okay, and we were all like, oh, let's watch this. They were professional drivers. They figured it out, and they got through there just fine.
Yeah, that might have been the most surprising thing that happened all last year, at least on track, was them making it through turn 1 on the Daytona road course for the first time. Anyway,
it was interesting, that's for sure.
So have you actually gotten a chance to look at like the actual detailed proposal that was part of the announcement today for the tracks? From the governor's office.
Not nuts and bolts of it yet. No, I've not had a chance yet.
So it's $45 million, 10 million to the Rock, 10 million to North Wilkesboro, 10 million to Charlotte Motor Speedway. I don't even know what would Charlotte use with its 10 million.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's always infrastructure improvements. There's always something you can upgrade and make fancier and nicer. So
campgrounds.
Listen, I'd have no problem spending 10 grand. I would find a way. If the state's going to give me $10 million, write me that check and I'll figure out a way to spend it. I'll throw in a bank if I have to, and I'll collect the interest. So I don't, there's nothing glaring about Charlotte Motor Speedway. They do a great job of keeping that, top notch.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock is another place too, where they, to their credit, they tried to bring the Rock back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had a couple of trucker series races there. They weren't the most well-attended races.
I feel like I've seen highlights of that race, and in my personal opinion, the crowds looked better than you'd get at a current truck race. From what I can remember.
One of those things it's hard to know. I mean, like, because in the grandstands at the Rock, I don't think we're the biggest. So it's like, are there a bunch of people close together, or is it like a bigger track where there's a bunch of people and they're spread out, so it looks smaller? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just, if the Rock was a viable place, they'd still be racing there. I mean, you could do it.
Well, there is a race that's going to be there later this year. I can't recall what series it is.
Car series, isn't it?
I have no idea. I'd have to ask.
Yeah, it's like a regional, local late model thing.
I'd have to ask Weaver. Hey, Weaver. But as part of this proposal in here, it says that some of this money is going to go towards North Carolina has nearly 40 active tracks, such as drag strips, kart tracks, oval tracks, and road courses that could benefit from refurbishment and be used for tourism events. So there's also money in this that's just going to smaller tracks too. So invest 10 million in each of those, the 3 big tracks. A non-state match of at least $1 for every $4 from the state is required to receive funding. County governments will partner with venues to fund needed infrastructure, including but not limited to the following: water and wastewater extensions, pedestrian walkway enhancements, speedway repaving, upgrades to facilities and dragways, if applicable, bathroom fixtures and maintenance, grandstand repair, and erosion control. So, as part, those tracks are going to get 10 million from the feds. So, but there's also going to be state level money matching at least part of this. So there is more than just this $30 million package going on here. So I'm not good with math. I don't know what $1 for 4 matching is. So can you do math? Are you?
I'm not. Math and science were my 2 worst subjects, and I look back on my time I spent in math classes, and I sat there and said, I don't need any of this when I get older. Like I need the basics, which I understand the basics. There's also calculators, which are wonderful things, but they all told me I needed like advanced calculus, and I have never needed advanced calculus in my life. I'm not bitter or anything.
So, but yeah, there's going to be county money going to this and state money. So I'm curious what they envisioned the final dollar amount will be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, listen, if the state's going to put up whatever they're going to put up, and if Marcus Smith is willing to pay for it, and it looks like Marcus Lemonis is willing to do something as well, like maybe you can cobble together something and make it work. I mean, listen, I want it to happen. We all want it to happen.
Yeah.
My philosophy on North Wilkesboro is the same philosophy I have for Nashville, the National Short Track.
Yeah.
When there is a shovel in the ground and there is a plan that has been approved and it is going forward, and all the I's have been dotted and all the T's have been crossed and all of the contracts have been signed and everybody's on board with this, then I'm like, okay, great. Until that moment, we've been down this road. We have been down. They tried to open Wilkesboro once before.
Oh, they last raced there 2010. Something like that.
Was it 10? Yeah. I mean, it was just, they tried. It was like, it's fine. I mean, it's not near.
I mean, I would argue that they haven't really been down this exact road. I don't think there's been this kind of money towards it. So
we'll see. I just, again, I hope it works. There's a lot of, like I said, you've got a lot of people with a lot of money behind them that could put this together and are very good at brokering deals. Awesome.
But the Marcus Lemonis part of it, because he's already said, $1 million. He's willing to put $1 million and a small Camping World store on the property somewhere. Okay. So, all right, you already got one new business in the Wilkesboro area. I think it's a legitimate question. Like if people are seeing Marcus Lemonis planting something there, what could that alone attract to the area that could bolster this?
Yeah, I mean, my question then is, okay, it's a small store. He said that. So what is a small store? How many how many full-time employees? How many part-time employees? Okay. And then my question, and Marcus is a much smarter businessman than I, and I will never pretend to be anything but. I'm really good at spending other people's money. I'm not good at making money. That's why I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
But is that worth, what is he getting out of this? I want to know, like, what is his return? What is the end game? What is the guarantee that store is that store is going to be around for at least 5 years, 10 years? There's all sorts of little things, little details I want to know and questions I want to ask. And again, it comes back to, I want to know what the county thinks. Is the county willing to put up money or contribute money to improving roads, improving infrastructure, making it easier for people to get there, which is not, you go off the highway, you take a right off, depending on which way you go down, you get off the highway, you go down a road, you take down another road, and it's really narrow and windy. And again, if the county's willing to help figure this out, awesome, let's do this. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Have you been to Rockingham? Have you been to?
I've not. I've never actually been in there.
Yeah, me too. A couple years ago, I drove out there on my way to the coast. I went out to the coast for a weekend. I was like, I'm gonna go see the Rock for the first time. It's like I was briefly in the town itself of Rockingham, and it seemed like a decent sized community. When people say it's the track's out in the middle of nowhere, I'm like, there's a town right there. But the track's there. It's looks decent. You got the drag strip right across the street from it. I mean, more ready to go closer to racing than North Wilkesboro is, but
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more turnkey than North Wilkesboro. And the other question I have about this is NASCAR has done a really good job over the last, I don't know, half decade or so of getting back to its southern roots in the sense of
yeah.
moving racetracks around. Darlington's back on the Southern 500 weekend.
And it's got at least for this year, it's got 2 races. At
It's
least for
got
this
two
year.
dates for this year. It's going to have 2 dates for next year,
You're
more than
okay.
like,
Okay.
and unless something completely weird happens, but more than likely, it's going to have 2 dates. Throwback weekend, and they Talladega, they've allowed Talladega to kind of become Talladega and rowdy again, and they've kind of promoted that, and they've kind of gone back to this they've been more embraced their outlaw core roots, okay, to some degree, which is awesome. And that's what they should do, because they really alienated a section of their fan base for a long time. I do think there is something to be said, though. Like, if North Wilkesboro gets a race and Rockingham gets a race, okay. So then, is there a little bit of oversaturation? I mean, this market, Charlotte, is much different than it was before the Charlotte Panthers got here. This is not.
Okay.
This is a NASCAR town to some degree still, but this is a Charlotte Panthers town. This is no longer NASCAR is everywhere and rules everything. So I just wonder if there's a little bit of too much, because you're going to have 2 races at Charlotte, at least 1 race at Darlington, and then Rockingham, and then a couple at Martinsville. Bristol's not far away. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to pour water on this, but I'm just curious about that.
We're gonna have 3 races in Tennessee now. You think of all the tracks.
Well, 3 tracks, more than 3 races though.
Well, yeah.
You got Bristol, Nashville, possibly. Oh, you're talking.
I'm like right now.
Right now,
we have Bristol Dirt, Bristol Night Race. So you get those 3, and I just think I've never quite understood the oversaturation part of it, really, because I mean, you do have 2 tracks in Virginia that you go to twice a year. You have a cluster.
But I will tell you though, can I say something about the thing though, is if you look at the schedule in the spring and you talk to people, the tracks, the Bristol, Martinsville, Richmond, those 3 races are up against each other, really close.
Mm-hmm.
Track people don't like that because they will say that it makes kind of fans choose to go to one because it's hard for them to go to all 3, and they're competing against each other for ticket sales at that time of the year. And they will say to you hey, is there a way we can do this where we can maybe spread this out a little bit?
I get it. Then you look at the West Coast, and you have Sonoma and Auto Club in the same state. I know they're very far apart.
Mm-hmm.
They're very far apart. You got Phoenix and you got Las Vegas. In the grand scheme of things, those tracks are close. I mean, so and then you got Texas. You got Texas Motor Speedway and COTA. So and Mr. Gossage was on the record saying, "Oh, that they'll never go there while I'm here." Well, look what's happening. I mean,
so the machinations of how that came together are fascinating to me, because it's like you said, it took a lot of people to appease and a lot of hurdles to hop through, but they made it work. It's interesting. And now we're gonna have the All-Star race at Texas.
Yeah. And in Florida, you got 2 Daytona races and you got Homestead. So I get parts of the oversaturation argument, but then other parts of it just don't really make sense to me. So
I understand it. To me, though, I mean, this area, if you've got Darlington, Rockingham, Martinsville, and Charlotte, so 4 tracks, they're all within just a couple hours. I mean, it's much different than it's much different than elsewhere. Austin and Texas are the same, but again, NASCAR is going to Austin in May, and then they're going back to Texas in a few weeks for the All-Star race, and then later this year. So there's a little bit of buffer there. I mean, you probably want more, but there was no way to do it with the All-Star race because that has to stand Fox and everything. But maybe COTA moves up next year. I mean, there's whispers that may happen, so there may be even a little bit more spreading out.
I know one person on Twitter who's going to go to his first NASCAR race this weekend at COTA. Mm-hmm. He lives in Texas and he's never been able to go to Texas Motor Speedway, but because of COTA, he's going to get to go to his first NASCAR race. That's awesome. So I mean, I'm sure there's going to be other examples of that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with NASCAR going into these new markets that it's never been before, or returning to a new market.
as NASCAR puts together, the schedule every year, and it's going to get interesting in what they do going forward. You hear about street courses, and who knows? Rockingham comes back, Wilkesboro comes back. It's going to be interesting to see how you craft this a little bit. Which track keep dates, which tracks don't lose dates or lose dates. Because my mind instantly start thinking, okay, well, Rockingham's great. If Rockingham gets a date and North Wilkesboro gets a date, okay, where are those dates coming from? And then you're gonna have street course racing. Okay, where are those dates gonna come from? It's gonna be interesting to see how this evolves in the practice of maybe you do a rotation of racetracks and you go to a market only once every 3 years or something like that. NASCAR's been very creative in how they put together this year's schedule. They were very creative last year on the flies. They had to be, and they did a great job with that. It's going to be interesting to see how you do this, because maybe that's a thing. And Formula One's kind of looking at that too. If here in America with their Grand Prix of, okay, we're going to have one in Miami for 10 years, which is another thing. I'll believe it if I see it, if they're actually there for 10 years. But okay, well then, so both COTA and Indy want to maintain that, but they, so do you have they alternate there? It's gonna be interesting. There's a lot of different ways to do this.
Well, I know one track that doesn't need 2 dates, Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we go through the schedule. I could pick apart the schedule real quick and start telling you what tracks don't need 2 dates.
Kansas doesn't need 2. Richmond could take a year off and just have 1.
So that's an interesting thing about Richmond is, people talk about want more short tracks, and it's like, well, maybe Richmond should have 2 dates. Well, we want more short tracks, but we want to take a date away from Richmond. I'm not, it'll be interesting, but that's part of it though. And then there's also the Auto Club Speedway element, which is now going to be a half-mile short track, which is kudos to NASCAR.
Have you seen any actual renderings of what it's supposed to look like? Because I saw a blueprint, I think, but not.
I've seen the blueprint. I've seen a couple things of what I've seen some what it's going to look like or kind of thing, but nothing concrete. And it's still in the process of getting all the approvals and everything, but it should go through. But that's going to be, assuming that track is what they think it's going to be, which is a half-mile track in Southern California and a real big market. You're probably going to want to have 2 races there. So where does that second date come from? It's going to be interesting to see. And then maybe that's where if you're playing Magic Man with the schedule, maybe that's where you say, okay, well, we don't need 2 dates at Richmond. We're going to take that second date and move to another short track. So, but again, this is just hypothetical.
So my last thing on this, especially with North Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro being in the middle of nowhere. Well, so's Darlington. Darlington's in the middle of nowhere. Martinsville's really in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing in Martinsville other than the track. So, I mean,
it's
Come on.
You're right. I mean, Martinsville, it's not in Illinois. I will say it's easier to get to. It's off a highway. I mean, it's a little bit more accessible than North Wilkesboro. But you make a good point. I mean, if you look at something, it's not like Darlington is in the middle of this, metropolitan area either.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a trek. It is a trek.
It is, and it's not in the road small roads. It's not the easiest to get to. The nearest city is about 20 minutes away. So the things I'm knocking against Wilkesboro apply to other tracks as well.
Yeah,
but those tracks are already in existence, and you don't have to spend $100 million plus to make those functional. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, to me, if I'm going to spend the money to build a racetrack, I'm looking at this going, listen, I love North Wilkesboro. It's great. What would it cost me to build something in like Portland or Seattle or somewhere Northwest where it's in a major market where, I mean, it's going to cost you more, but you might get more of a return because, again, you're in a major market. I don't know.
Do you see NASCAR ever going to Road Atlanta?
Road Atlanta, no. Well, I will never say no. Let me say that they own the track.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm asking.
There was talk last year that was one of the racetracks that was one of their fallbacks. If Watkins Glen was going to fall off the schedule, they're going to go to Daytona, are they going to go to Road Atlanta? So I would never say never, just because we're coming off a year where everything happened.
Everything.
I mean, we saw midweek racing. We saw Darlington with 3 races. I mean, Charlotte had 3 races. I mean, yeah. I would just say never say never. It's one of those things in the back pocket. But in terms of NASCAR going there and maybe having a spot in the schedule, I would say no, because you have Atlanta Motor Speedway there. And that's an SMI track. NASCAR's not going to, there's just an agreement of we're not going to move into your backyard to start a race. I mean, I would be shocked to see a scheduled race at Road Atlanta, especially with everything going on at Atlanta Motor Speedway and them trying to bring in a casino and everything.
Yeah.
And them having 2 dates. I don't see.
Okay.
That's a tough market right now. That's another market where you have to be in there for a lot of reasons because of sponsors, and it's and it's where you long race. I just don't know if I'd rather go to other road courses. I think that's probably the best way to say it too.
Okay. Well, there is 7 that we're going to this year. So anyway, all right. Next topic. Brad Keselowski, Roush Racing. So Jim Utter at motorsport.com, who I like, I'm friends with, posted his story yesterday, and I was immediately had many questions. So when you first saw this story that Brad Keselowski has been offered an ownership stake at Roush Fenway Racing and would drive for Roush Fenway Racing, what was your immediate gut feeling about that?
I wasn't surprised because I heard about this at least a month ago. I'd have to go back and look at my notes and I tell you when I first heard of it. But I had heard, this wasn't out of left field for a lot of us, I don't think, because we had heard about it. I've talked to other people in the industry about this. I've talked to other colleagues about this. So my initial shock wasn't yesterday because everything that Utter wrote, I largely, I don't think there's anything in there that caught me off guard. It was like, checking the boxes. Okay, yeah. And good for Jim. That's Jim. Jim did a good job. Jim's a darn good reporter, and he's good at his job. So I wasn't taken back by it. Now, when I first heard the news, a month or so ago, it was like, it took me a second. I'm like, okay, interesting. But I wasn't surprised. And I wrote about this on The Athletic. My colleague, Jeff Glock, and I had this back and forth. Like, there are a lot of little signs when you start adding them up that this was like the Penske-Keselowski relationship was heading towards a divorce. It just, from my understanding, is neither side was really happy with the other. It was a functioning relationship. You can't argue that. Brad almost won the championship last year. If you had a couple better pit stops, you probably would have beaten Chase and Phoenix and won the championship. And so it's a very functioning relationship, but Brad wants a long-term contract. He wants security. He wants to be paid like an A-plus driver, which he is. You can't argue that he is a top 4, 3, whatever. He's in the top 5, regardless. And he wants security. He wants to be paid. And it wasn't happening at Penske. They had an opportunity to resign him to a long-term contract last year. They resigned him to a 1-year deal. They had an opportunity to resign him to a long extension back in 2017, going into 8. They signed him to a 3-year deal. Now, 3-year deals are typically the way teams operate in NASCAR, but there are exceptions. Joey Logano signed a longer contract than 3 years. Now, part of that was because that Shell was involved and they wanted a longer commitment. So I wasn't surprised. It just made sense.
Well, I guess one part that I think no one's really mentioned in the last 24 hours is, like, you just mentioned Shell with Logano. Like, Brad Keselowski's big backer for pretty much the last 10 years was Miller Lite, and they have quietly gone down to one race.
Yep.
And it's not even Miller Lite anymore. It's Keystone Light.
Yeah, it's still in the company, still in the family, but yeah, you're right. That's part of the reason from the Penske perspective of, we want Brad. We like Brad. Brad's a great driver, but we need to make sure we have everything buttoned up on the sponsorship side. And as you said, they've done a good job. They've got Discount Tire and they've got some other partners. And it's not like Brad's car has sponsorship every week. It's not like he's running a Penske car, sponsored car. So, they've done a good job of filling it out, but it's not like it was. And that's a problem. So I don't know. It makes sense why they both would say this isn't working, or maybe we need to go. And let me be clear on this too. My understanding is that Penske was open to having Brad come back. Roger Penske, actually, I shouldn't say, Roger's kind of said this, like, we want Brad back. They like Brad. Brad's a really good driver. He can win championships for them. Yeah. You don't replace a Brad Keselowski that easily. And that's the big question on this is how do you do that?
So, like, somebody tweeted at some point yesterday, like, here's Penske's championships, wins and stuff pre-Keselowski, and post-Keselowski. It's a lot more.
It is.
Every category.
It is. And I wrote about this on The Athletic, and that credit a large chunk of it should go to Keselowski, because when he got there, He came over from Hendrick Motorsports at the end of the 09 season, and he said, well, wait a second, and before Brad got there, Penske was up and down every year. They'd have good years and bad year, and then they had guys missing playoffs all the time. Kurt Busch would win a couple races one year, then go, miss the playoff the next. It was just, there was no consistency. Ryan Newman wins the 2008 Daytona 500, misses the playoffs and finishes like 18th in points and then leaves. There was no consistency. Brad got there and looked around like, hey, wait a second. Like, I come from Hendrick Motorsports. They have this, they're doing this, this, and this. Why are we not running an Xfinity car, to get reps, to build guys up, to get experience, to get me some laps, Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they start 3 years after Brad got there, they won a championship in 2012. His first full season was 2010, wins the 2012 Cup Championship. That's Rogers' first. Flash forward a year, Joey Logano is leaving Joe Gibbs Racing. They had, and Penske's trying to figure out what they're going to do with the 22 car. Allmendinger had failed the drug test and been fired.
Yeah.
Sam Horse Jr. had filled in. Just, it was just okay. They needed stability and they needed results. Brad said, hire that guy. He's looking at Joey Logano saying, hire that guy right now. That's the guy. You put him in this car, he's going to do great things. He's getting out of a situation where it just wasn't right for him. Trust me. They listened to him. Look at what Joey Logano's done since. My point is he deserves a lot of credit for helping build up Penske that we know it now today, where they're world beaters. There's no doubt they are one of the absolute powerhouses in NASCAR almost literally every single year. I mean, you can't deny that. So Brad deserves a lot of credit for that. Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see if he can apply the same tactical, the same smarts over at Roush, because it's feasible. It's apples to oranges a little bit, but the closest comparison is probably Tony Stewart going to Gene Haas's team in 2009.
Yeah. Also, when it comes to Keselowski and winning, like you said, he won his title in 12, so like second or third. When's the last time someone entered the Cup Series and won a title that quickly? I think the last one it was Tony Stewart. Entered 99, won 02, didn't he?
Yep, that's right. 02. Kenseth won in 03. He was a rookie in 2000. So, I mean, 4 years. Yeah. So, I mean, it was quick. I mean, so Brad was in his fourth full season. So that's where Matt was.
Well, no, he was part-time in 09,
he did part-time,
right?
but I mean, fourth full season though. But yeah.
There have been third full. Right, 10, 11,
2010, 2011, you're right, yeah.
So,
see, again, math is not my strong suit. I don't pretend to be. But no, I mean, he won it quick. I mean, and everybody thought then, and I mean, I wrote it back then, is like, you thought Keselowski and Paul Wolfe were going to be the next Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus. And they were in multiple championships. And they came close many, many times. I mean, they probably should have won the championship in 14, 15. They were really, really good. They've had some other near misses, so it's interesting to see the would have, should have, could have in Brad's career and where it goes. And now obviously we look at championships differently a little bit because of the playoffs and the knockout format, but it's going to be an interesting career. And
he's won everything but the 500. Like he
won everything but the 500. He's won every major race but the 500.
And he's done. He's checked
not
off
won in a road course.
Okay. Yeah. 012 came close.
Oh no, he not just 012. I mean, he had like back-to-back years of like second place. He's good on road courses. I'm not knocking him. He's very good on road course. I'm just saying he's won a road course. He's like I said, he's easily one of the top 5 talents. But there is a scenario here where he goes to Roush and wins only a few more races.
Yeah,
isn't a factor in the playoffs. I mean, that's not unrealistic.
Yeah, like I think he'd be a valuable asset for Roush.
Mm-hmm.
But like he was for Team Penske, he could do that. But I think when he joined Penske, I think they were in a better position than he'd be joining Roush right now.
I mean, Roger Penske is Roger Penske, and Roger's going to spend money, and Roger has sponsors in place, and Roush has done a good job of cultivating sponsors. They announced something, Fastenal today, and the 17 team. It's a lot. It's not easy to rebuild a team. It's really hard. And it's expensive. Now, the next gen cars is the big X factor in this and how this plays in. And the question is would Brad be confident making this move if the next gen car wasn't coming in? I don't know. From the conversation I've had with people, this is going to be the belief is that this is going to level the playing field and that this driver is going to be more of a factor. And if you drive for a smaller team, it won't matter anymore if you're a great driver. Okay, kind of like IndyCar. I mean, if a great driver can elevate a team up. We've seen it many times over with a lot of different guys. Sebastian Bourdais first comes to mind. If that's the case, then it's not, then that Brad can do it. Brad's got the talent. But if the next gen car doesn't deliver as people think it's going to in terms of the competitiveness and the big teams and the small teams, or the golf is still there, you're still pushing that ball uphill. Not to mention, in the Ford pecking order, in some order, you've got 1A and 1B undoubtedly are Team Penske and Stewart-Haas.
Yeah.
Ford is very loyal to Roush. Roush is incredibly loyal to Ford. That relationship isn't going to go anywhere. And Ford is always going to be part of Roush Racing, and they're going to help them out. It's really hard, though, to support 3 upper-tier organizations. It doesn't happen in NASCAR. Look at it across the board. Toyota's got 1. Chevy's got 1, and then a couple teams below that, but it's not at that level. Ford has made it work really well with Stewart-Haas and Penske, a lot better than I thought it was going to work, and a lot better. I remember when it happened, it was like, well, wait, the announcement happened, and like, whoa, wait a second here. This is going to be interesting. And they've done a great job, but they also kind of operate separately from each other. I don't know how Roush fits into that. That's a really complicated thing.
So where do you think things went wrong for Roush? Because they are nowhere near where they were in the 2000s and the early 2010s, and they've won only two cup races with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. since Carl Edwards left.
Yeah. So a couple things. Yeah. So they've only, and both those races were on super speedways.
Yeah.
So they haven't won a non-super speedway race since 2014 at Sonoma when Carl Edwards won. And the interesting thing about that Carl Edwards win at Sonoma, I went back and looked last night as we were kind of putting some stuff together. The top 10 finishers of that race all have retired.
Really?
All top 10, every single one.
Wow.
Go look at it. I'm telling you right now, it's a Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt, Jamie McMurray.
Wow.
Edwards, Marcus Ambrose was in there.
Wow.
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
That's a stat.
I kid you not.
That is a stat. Wow. So where do you think they just lost the ball? Like where if you could point to an area?
Boy, that's a really good question.
Because I remember a few years ago, one of my first few years at NBC Sports, I did an interview with Jack Roush in the hauler, and he said, "Oh, we just started using this new program or something. I can't remember what it was, but the other people have been using." I was like, "Oh, that seems like news." So I wrote that up, and it's like it just seems like they've been playing catch up for whatever reason for like 10 years.
It happens though. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it happens, and there's a lot of reasons that happened to Roush. I don't know if they've done a good job of replacing talent. I mean, for a long time, they just had this system, this pipeline of like, okay, well, so and so is going to leave, we're going to replace him. Well, Mark Martin leaves, and his replacement's David Reagan.
Yeah,
and not to besmirch David Reagan, but I think it's fair to say that David Reagan didn't do the same caliber of job as his teammates.
No.
And he wasn't Mark Martin in that car.
He was the Casey Mears of Roush.
And so, okay, and Carl Edwards leaves. And then, okay, we're going to give Trevor Bayne a full-time ride. Well, now Trevor had won the 2011 Daytona 500, and he had some moments. You're like, okay. So, but my point is, sometimes these things don't work out. I mean, Matt Kenseth leaves and you bring in Ricky Stenhouse. Ricky had won 2 Xfinity championships. Like, he was deserving of that ride, but it just didn't work out. So sometimes because some of the driver in the Reagan case, the curious decision of this is who we're going to go with. And then sometimes in the Stenhouse decision of this just didn't work out for a lot of different reasons. So you look at those decisions, the transactional moves, and like, okay, wait a second. Secondly, I mean, they did get off the beaten path. They got behind. And when you get behind, it's really hard to catch up, and it's even easier to keep falling even more behind. We've seen it happen with a lot of great organizations. Yates Racing comes to mind, where technology gets beyond you, and you're still doing things from a bygone era when you had success. Well, that's great. That worked then. It doesn't work now. And the next thing you know, you're like looking around going, what just happened here?
Yeah.
So, and then sponsorship became a thing. I mean, it just became, where the funding decreased. You lose your options to go out and spend money on technology and resource and everything else. So it's just been a thing. I mean, it's crazy. They went from a 5-car team that had all 5 drivers in the playoffs in 2005 to a 2-car team that is now, this year they've been better. And there's like, I actually look at them now and I think there's some pieces over there. Like this team is actually, to me, I actually think they're kind of on the upswing a little bit. And I think getting Brad over there is actually going to, even if things don't go to the next gen, take the next gen out of the equation. Things stay they were. You put Brad Keselowski over there. I'm like looking at this going, this has got the makings of something, to build on, because Chris is a good driver. Brad's a really good driver. They've got some smart people over there. Jimmy Fenning's done a great job. So, yeah.
I mean, it showed at Homestead this year when Chris Buescher just went up and straight up passed Keselowski for the lead. When was the last time we saw that happen? Like a Roush driver at a non-super speedway track.
Not in that he had a top 10 at Atlanta. He and Ryan Newman finished top 10 at Darlington, another intermediate. So, and that's been their weakness the last few years, has been intermediate tracks. They've been really good at super speedways. They're functional at road courses. But intermediate tracks, which are the bread and butter of NASCAR, at least were until the schedule got, changed. They've struggled. And now Jimmy Fitting's come in, he's taken over the competition side of things, and you're looking at this going, okay. Like I said, Chris is in the playoffs right now, like 13th in the standings. He's having a really good year, solid year. Like he's doing.
Like I wasn't even aware that they had finished in the top 10 at Darlington. So like
both drivers finished in the top 10.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's good. So there's like fundamental. Like I'm looking at like Brad goes over there, and I said even taking the next gen out of the equation, like you're thinking Brad goes over there, they're going to be they've got a potential to do something. Like okay, I'm encouraged. And then if the next gen is what we think or people think the next gen is going to be, okay, I like this. I get, like for Roush Racing, I get this. Like I would have handed Brad a blank check and said, "You just name your price."
Oh, absolutely.
I think you can be a game changer.
It's all upswing for Roush, but for Keselowski himself, that's like So all right. So at some point, I guess we're expecting that to be announced. Like when do you think that would be?
I think it's going to be a little while. And contract situations, these things typically tend to wait until the end of the year. When Carl Edwards left Roush to go to Gibbs, he announced that he wasn't going to be back. Or it was out that he was going to be back because he announced at the Roush Fenway Racing announced at the Brickyard that year their driver lineup, and Edwards wasn't included. And I'll never forget asking, like we just stalked Carl Edwards in the garage, and then we cornered him. And I never forget asking him, like, "Are you sure? I mean, you are confident 100% that you're going to have a ride next year?" Because he was, he wasn't going to answer the question. We all knew he was going to Gibbs, but we're trying to like pin him down. And I said, "Are you confident you're going to have a ride next year?" And he looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, like, come on." But that's the thing. But my point is that these things take time, and you don't always, it doesn't always happen that this comes out and then the announcement happens the next day. There are contract obligations. A lot of contracts contain, you have to have some kind of separation notice. You've got to have some time between the announcements, that kind of thing. You've got sponsors, obligations you got to fulfill, whatever. I just think it's going to be a little bit of time.
Okay. All right. Before we get into COTA, we every week, Jordan, we have a segment here called McDowell Watch.
Okay.
Where we're just kind of just plotting out what the season that Michael McDowell's having after winning the Daytona 500. He's automatically having the best season of his career. So we're just going week to week and telling you how he's doing since he won. And so he finished 25th at Dover, 5 laps off the lead pace. I think he had a speeding penalty at some point at Dover. So going into a road course where he has a history with road course racing. What do you think of Michael McDowell's season so far?
I mean, it's been a home run. You win the Daytona 500. You win the Daytona 500. Anything after that's cream cheese. I mean, it's just, it's especially for that team, that organization, because they're automatically, essentially automatically in the playoffs, and then the additional revenue and sponsorship and everything like that. I mean, it's a home run. I mean, I don't know how it's not. And then the fact that you look at his season and he followed it up with a top 5 run at Daytona Road Course, another top 10 at home, eighth,
6th at Homestead,
and then another top 10 at home. It's like, wait, this is good. They're doing good. I mean, it's good. They don't have the consistency and the ability to run top 10 every single week. That's just not who they are. But they are certainly showing the capability to punch above their weight class on a given Sunday outside of the super speedways. McDowell's a good road course racer. There's no reason to think that he can't have another good top 10, top 15 finish here and continue to build that. And he certainly is not going to fall outside the top 30 in the points. And I don't know how you feel about this. I am more than adamant, and I will climb on top of a hill shouting this if I have to. There are not going to be more winners than playoff spots. It's just not. So
there was a month where you could say maybe. There was a month. So,
there was no.
But they're running out of time to do that.
There was not a month. There was like, I mean, if you want to get, yes. I mean, listen, never say never. And there was like a small, minute chance it could happen because so-and-so could win this race. And then the sky could open up and there could be a torrential downpour 6 laps from the finish. And like the top 20 guys pit and the guy in 21st is going to win the race. Sure. It just wasn't conceivably going to happen.
So, all right. Well, he's 16th in the points this week, going to COTA. I haven't even looked at the starting lineup that came out.
There is no starting lineup. There's qualifying.
Oh my God. That's where we're at now. George's like, hey, where's the starting lineup? Oh, no. We're qualifying.
So it comes out every Wednesday morning, and there's no alert us today. It's qualifying. There's practice this week. It's like old school NASCAR in a sense.
So, no, absolutely. So, okay, have you been to COTA?
I have not. I know lots of people have been there. Have you?
Nope, I've never laid eyes on it.
I've heard phenomenal things. I've heard the track, the layout. It's awesome. It's world class. It's amazing. Everybody I talk to is beyond giddy to be racing there. I'm excited. I hope it goes well. I think it's great. I am very excited. I think this is an event, and I think NASCAR needs more of these kind of events.
A quick iRacing update. Lap 14, Drew Davison is leading. 9-second advantage over Anthony Alfredo. 20th place Kyle Busch, 1 minute and 8 seconds back. So, what you will not be seeing on Sunday. So, so what do you think about this race just in general? Like, we've never been there. Has elevation changes. It's a long track, 3.4 miles. Like, how do you think this race will compare to like, I think it's probably going to be more Sonoma than a Watkins Glen.
Yeah, I mean, Rodney Childer, I talked to Rodney this morning on Sirius, and I asked him that question. I said, like, what do you compare this to? And he said Sonoma was kind of the one. Was it Rodney that said this, or Matt? It was somebody said it was Sonoma. I apologize. It's been a long day. But that Sonoma's the analogy that I've heard, because it's going to be tire wear and it's a little bit technical. And I don't know what to expect. I'm not good at the technical side of things. I try not to be, trying to speak above my pay grade. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's a great track. I mean, from the tire test, from the sims, from the iRacing stuff we've seen, it looks encouraging. I don't know why this can't be a great race. And if there's tire wear, that's all the better. If the tire fall off is what Rodney did say this about the tires, is that the fall off is what they think it's going to be. That's what you want to see. So there should be plenty of passing opportunities. And I think it's going to be good. And I'm glad it's on the schedule. And I hope it becomes a thing every single year.
Like, I love that there's some really tight corners on this thing. Like, yeah, because those are where the passing opportunities are. You got long straightaways, so you can build up momentum and then, just dive down into that corner as deep as you possibly can. I'm hoping that this shows off that at least that NASCAR racing will be superior to F1 in some ways in this race. So I believe that Hamilton's won he's at Austin like 5 times in F1. I don't know the numbers, but I think that's what I heard.
I just presume that Lewis Hamilton's won a lot of races at every track.
So I mean, I don't.
But I mean, it's too different to me. I mean, Formula One is about strategy and it's about, it's about guys really pushing the corners. To me, NASCAR is about bumping and banging and track position. I think it's gonna be a better race in F1 just because there's gonna be more passing.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think that about every dance. I mean, I love Formula One. I'm a huge Formula One fan, but you're always going to have more passing in NASCAR than Formula One. That's just the way it is.
So, what's your favorite road course that's currently on the circuit?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I like different ones. I mean, I like Sonoma's great. Watkins Glen is great. Watkins Glen over the last 10 15 years has become an absolute slugfest where it's like racing, it's like a Martinsville of short tracks where guys are just slamming into each other, pissed off, angry, running into each other. I mean, that to me is, it's like that's why what happened at Martinsville, what happened at Watkins Glen over the last, you go back to like 2011 or so with Keselowski and Ambrose and Kyle Busch in that last lap.
2012.
Yeah. And you go back to that. Well, and then the year before that was Marcus Ambrose and like Boris said, and Greg Biffle got into a scuffle in the garage. And so it's those kind of moments at Watkins Glen are why fans fell in love with road course racing and why we have so many of them. So I guess I would say probably Watkins Glen, but Sonoma's fantastic too. Like Sonoma's a real technical track and it's tighter and you have to manage it. I like it everywhere. The Roval is a whole different ball of wax where it's like kind of this oval road course thing. And it's just like complete. I mean, the first race there in 2018 was absolute mayhem. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. And then 2019 as an encore was pretty darn good too.
When Chase Elliott goes nose first into a tire barrier and comes back and wins handedly.
Alex Bowman races his butt off, which honestly might be the most. He's won a couple races since then, but I mean, honestly, it'd probably be his most impressive drive because he had a battered race car from the back. Finished, I think, second in that race. And then he needed to finish second too, or something of that nature to go on to the next playoff. I mean, there was just all sorts of drama that year, which was amazing. So, I mean, I don't know how to pick them. I guess I pick Watkins Glen because it's cool, but like going up to Sonoma though in wine country is phenomenal too. And so I think NASCAR, what they have with the road courses is great. I'm very curious to see how COTA and Road America fit into this. I think Indy's going to be good. The Indy Xfinity Series race last year was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. I don't know how you don't go to the Indy road course after that. Like I don't know how does NASCAR see that and say, okay, we're not going to put Cup on there for at least 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. So
it was a great race, and I think it's going to be a great race this year. And I don't miss the Oval. I understand why people want to run the Oval because I'm a traditionalist. I get it, but the racing is not good. It hasn't been good for a long time, so I'm not going to miss it. But COTA and Road America are two very big tracks. Like they are bigger than anything out there right now. How's that going to work? And the one thing I was worried about too is, caution laps at Road America are exhausting. Caution laps
isn't there
at COTA
a shortcut?
There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. There's no local yellows. So that's kind of what I worry about is like, I mean, if Sunday is in the rain and there's cautions and stuff, it's like, you don't want to see cars just circling the track and are yellow. I mean, so I worry about those kind of things because it takes so long to get races restarted. And, so if you could tell me we could use local yellows and I wouldn't be so worried about this, I'd be happy and encouraged. I mean, the Xfinity Series race at Road America has been great just about every year. It's always exciting. So I think there's room for this. To me, the question is about road courses is I like where they're at. I like the markets they're in. I like what they represent. It's the right number right now.
Mm-hmm.
I am concerned if you keep adding them though. Like you asked about Road Atlanta earlier, like, okay, I don't want to see more on the schedule. Now, if you do a street course, okay.
I think seven's the limit. When I asked about Road Atlanta, I was like, maybe just
I know
replacing it with something that's so.
But I think you've got Road America in the Midwest, in the Wisconsin, Chicago area, that'll work. You've obviously got Austin, Sonoma, we know, Watkins Glen, we know, Charlotte, we know. Okay, now you want to have street course racing somewhere, that's fine. But I don't want to see really anything beyond that. I think we've kind of hit our threshold of road courses.
The street course race excites me to no end because I think open wheel street courses are very boring. especially with avoidable contact penalties. Like if you blow on the car, it will stall out. But with stock cars, you got bumpers. It might be narrow, but you can use your bumper, and it could be a slugfest. So that you can't get with open wheel.
I agree. I think lap one is going to be absolute mayhem. I think there's going to be a lot of pile. We've seen IndyCar. I mean, they lap one. There's always contact in the corner one or something. And so it just stock cars. I think are going to be the same thing. I'm here for it. I want to see it. I think it can be done right. I think it gives you the opportunity to go into entertaining markets. Like I look at the Nashville street course that's going to happen in IndyCar this year, and I'm like, damn, that looks fun.
They're going over a bridge.
They're going over a bridge. Yeah. It's like Formula One in Miami wanted to go over a bridge. I was like, okay, wow. All right. Cause I mean, to me, I get like the visions of the worst possible thing that can happen. And I've seen the movie Driven too many times. Oh and so like, okay, it's going over a bridge, a good idea. I mean, it's like cool, it's awesome, but I'm thinking of the worst case scenario here. And but we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see.
Driven has the worst movie editing, one instance of a movie editing I've ever seen in my life.
It's the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, well, during the big race at the end or whatever, there's a huge crash. Cars go flipping off the track into water, like they go into the ocean, and an instant later, you see cars that went into the water rolling down pit road.
Well, I mean, there's that. Days of Thunder. I could pick our Days of Thunder too. Like,
I could too.
But the editing of Days of Thunder is atrocious. I mean, there are scenes clearly where they want to depict that it's Rowdy Burns' car, except it's Dale Earnhardt's car. There's a scene in there where they say it's Harry Gant and it's Brett Bodine's car. I mean, there's all sorts. The editing
I've never picked up on that. The stuff that always gets me is like, we're at Phoenix, but also Daytona, but also Darlington.
There's that too. I mean, I am a racing. There's two things I'm an expert in: racing movie. I am a racing movie savant. You're right about that though. They're at Phoenix, and it's like, well, they're not at Phoenix. They're at like Rockingham, or they're at Rockingham. They said they're at Phoenix. Or my favorites are like they're at Charlotte, and he's like, I'm dropping the hammer. It's like you're at a test session. You're not circling the track in third gear. You should already be in fourth gear. Why are you not in fourth gear at a test session?
This podcast is called Dropping the Hammer for a reason. And I asked you to respect that scene.
I love it. Let me just say, I love Days of Thunder. The scene where Tom Cruise, like, it's so cliche. They're on pit road at the test, and they're like, who's this guy? Who's this guy you're going to have test? Oh, he's some guy from the ASA, got kicked out of USAC, whatever. Oh, okay. Where is he? Tom Cruise. It's so cliche. There's smoke.
It's badass. It's so badass.
It's great. Tom Cruise comes through the smoke. I don't know where the hell that came from. He's come through the smoke. He's got like a trench coat on his motorcycle, the sunglasses, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And he takes it out. He's got his helmet back. By the way, where's his driver uniform? Is it just like he just crumpled it up and threw it in his bag? I don't know. I got questions like his shoes, his gloves. Like, I got questions. Anyway, okay. So again, you have a test session. Why are you not in fourth gear? I've never seen a NASCAR, a stock car, not be in fourth gear. That's just how you run ovals. So that's crazy. It's ludicrous. The whole scene at Daytona 500 at the end where he's driving around backwards because of transmission issues. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's all sorts of like things to pick apart in this.
Oh, there's so many things. Actually, at some point, it'd be cool to do like an audio commentary of Days of Thunder with you.
100%. As long as there's one, I'm in. As long as we can drink.
I will have beer. I will have a beer. Okay.
Oh wow, that is mighty bold of you there, sir.
I'll do that. I'll take part.
Wow, but, one beer.
Oh, okay. I'll do two.
Wow. Ooh, living the wild life.
All right. So I want to get like you and Weaver and do Days of Thunder commentary. So,
okay.
So because that'd be fun for me.
All right.
So, but yeah, before circling back to road courses, Watkins Glen is my favorite. And like you said, in the last decade, the racing there has gotten better, and for my money, it's because they cemented over certain corners. Turn one, there's now runoff. Turn, what's the final left-hand turn? What number is that?
Not the carousel. Yeah, I know you mean. Yeah, not the horse, not the boot.
Yeah, but they've cemented over that.
Mhm.
So I think that really added to the racing there, doing those runoff areas where you could get off, but you can still put the gas on and come back on. And I think with COTA, there's lots of runoff areas from what I've seen. So I really think that will hopefully add to the action on Sunday, rain or shine.
That's the nice thing too. We don't have to worry about the weather this weekend. We just know there's gonna be a race.
Which is weird. After years of having these wet tires ready to go, and just nothing ever happening. We finally get it last year on the Roval, where it's just a torrential downpour for the Xfinity race. But on Sunday it started out wet, but it added to the race. Like you had Ty Dillon just like streaking up to the front, like okay there.
It was phenomenal. Yeah, he was on the alternate tire strategy, and it was phenomenal. It was a great piece of driving, and the fact that he had gone out to the go-kart track and practice in wet conditions to understand how to brake and everything only added to it. It was phenomenal to see that, and you can see why people love road course racing, because it puts the onus on a driver to make things happen.
So yeah, and so we there's the possibility that it could rain Sunday. I think it's definitely going to rain Saturday. So
yeah, the Xfinity race, I feel bad for the Xfinity guys, man, because they get the brunt of this. I mean, last year at the Roval was brutal. They've had some times in Montreal where it was raining. That was the first time they'd used the wet weather tires. And
Mid-Ohio.
That's right. Mid-Ohio was
that was crazy. The greatest race I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
I mean, I'm being hyperbolic. It was very entertaining. And just to see Justin Marks do what he was able to do in that race was beyond impressive. So, but so if we're seeing these drivers like on Saturday getting their first track time on a wet track at COTA, that will be must-watch television.
I'm excited. I think it's gonna be great. I'm glad they're there. I think I'm hopeful that this becomes an annual thing, and I hope COTA can make this work. And they want to remain viable, and they want to keep NASCAR on their schedule, and everybody goes forward happy, and we get great racing every year.
All right, I think that's gonna do it. Thanks for stopping by, Jordan, for this edition of Dropping the Hammer. Where can everyone find you?
Check out my coverage on theathletic.com. Just go to the motorsports vertical there. So theathletic.com. And then on social media, Jordan_Bianchi on Twitter. And you can all find my musings and ramblings and all my work.
And who's your pick to win Sunday?
Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott?
Yeah, he's the best road course racer in NASCAR. And if I don't know what to expect, I'm just going to take him.
All right. I'm going to take Truex. So
yeah, I was going to say, he was my second pick. So.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's Chase, it's Truex. Like who's the third guy you would pick?
I'd throw Logano in the mix. I'd throw Hamlin in the mix.
Hamlin only has one road course win.
It's fine. He's still competitive. I mean, he finished second Daytona last year. He was competitive this year at Daytona. Was competitive. I mean, he runs these races well. I mean, Logano is.
Well, he should have won. He almost won Sonoma. Then Tony Stewart was like, "No, thank you."
He did. I think Logano's only got one road course win too, and he almost won Daytona this year. I mean, so.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, these are guys. I don't look at just the wins. I look at guys who are frequently running in the top 5 and put themselves in position. And you look at Truex, you look at Elliott, Hamlin, Logano. Those are the 4 that do it more often than not. I throw Kyle Busch in that mix too.
All right. So I got Truex, Jordan Bianchi. You have Chase Elliott. We'll see how things tangle out Sunday. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, friend.